Welcome to the Flow Podcast, fearlessly leading our way. This podcast is a space dedicated to spotlighting the unfiltered voices of Black women in their unique leadership journeys. I am your host, Angela V. Harris. I'm an award-winning coach, speaker, author, and champion for Black women. Make sure you like and subscribe to this podcast to stay connected to our conversation. Let's get ready to flow. Hey, fearless leaders, welcome back to another episode of the Flow Podcast. I'm your host, Angela V. Harris. If you're new here, welcome to the Flow community. For my returning listeners, thank you so much for being here. We recently celebrated our 1-year anniversary on March 8th, 2025, and I'm excited to share that we've reached over 1,200 downloads and counting. Thank you all for listening, sharing, and supporting the show. It truly means the world to me. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Chelsea Glover Jordan, a therapist, author, and advocate for Black women's mental health who's making an incredible impact. Chelsea's story is all about healing, authenticity, and taking up space in a world that often tries to box us in. We dive deep into everything from her journey of breaking generational cycles to building her private practice during the pandemic. Get ready to be inspired, especially if you've ever felt the pressure of living up to societal expectations or felt like your journey was too unconventional to succeed. Chelsea's transparency and wisdom are truly powerful, and I know you're going to love this conversation. Let's jump into my conversation with Chelsea Glover Jordan. Welcome to the show, Chelsea.
Thank you, Angela. I'm very, very, very happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy to have you, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. So, in doing some research about you, I learned that we both have a love for balancing the seven chakras.
Mhm.
And I'm a Reiki practitioner, so I fully believe in socializing holistic wellness within the Black community. So this conversation is so important.
Nice, nice. I love that.
Yeah. And I also just love how you take a holistic approach in your therapy practice as well.
Yeah. So we offer an array of services to focus on the whole person and not just the symptoms that they may be presenting. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, Chelsea. Well, before we dive into what you do today, I want to take a step back. I know you had an incredible journey that led you to becoming a therapist and an advocate for Black women's mental health. Can you share a bit about your backstory and what inspired you to get into this field?
Sure. So there are a myriad of reasons as to why I decided to become a clinician, a therapist to Black women specifically. But in all of my sessions and with all of my clients, the initial questions, one of the initial questions that I ask is, what was the most pivotal experience you had to kind of define who you are today as an adult? And I realized that I had not answered that question for myself. So just in reflecting, I'm an avid journaler, I'm a writer, and I love to write, and just becoming more aware of who I am to myself and to the rest of the world. I just asked myself that question, and I began to reflect on my journey into becoming a mother. Initially, I did not have any interest in becoming a parent. I had no interest in um, worrying about anybody aside from myself, just based on my background and my own relationship with my mom. And I didn't want to perpetuate certain narratives or things that traditionally some Black families unfortunately have to go through. So I just didn't want to have to do the work, honestly. It was quite selfish, but it was my reality. And my son currently is 15 years old. He has been the most revealing piece of me. And when I say that, directly and indirectly, becoming a mother has been the most profound thing I've ever had to do, and I'm still doing. Obviously, if you know, if you're a mom, for those of you out there, it their trends, right? Like things ebb and flow, and nothing is always constant, and you have to always be on go, right? So being able to adapt to one, becoming a mother, the realization that I am going to become a mother after not wanting to become a mother, has been very profound. And then just my journey going into motherhood, and as I feel like I have arrived in some senses in my motherhood journey as I parent a teenage boy. It has also helped me realized that my journey with my own mother needed some tending to. There needed to be some healing there, and I can say now, we're currently working on our relationship, and because I became a mom, it helped us become closer. She's an amazing grandmother, and she tends to myself and my sisters, and her other grandchildren in a beautiful way. Something that I've never seen from her. And I feel like me and my son got different versions of my mom. So that's just a bit of why I decided to become a clinician, as well as, so when I did have my son, I wasn't like a mental health person. I really didn't know the ins and outs of it. But I soon found out that depression was real. Postpartum depression and anxiety and OCD became a reality for me. And I feel like throughout that time, the first year of my son's life, I I was ashamed, and I did not verbalize it vocally to myself. I didn't acknowledge it within myself, and I did not certainly acknowledge it to anyone else. And I feel like if I would have had um, just someone I felt comfortable in going to, or someone who I felt understood me in my journey, things may have been different for me sooner. Right. I feel like I'm in a great place now, but sooner. And I feel like I want to be that for other young mothers, so that they don't have to go through certain things. And that's why I pretty much became a clinician to Black maternal health.
I mean, there's so much there to unpack. And I know that Black professionals are also underrepresented in the mental health field. So the work that you're doing to support Black women is, the Black community in general is very much needed. I wanted to go back to something that you said. You talked about, working to heal your relationship with your own mother, and how you discovered, journaling. And in some ways, I guess it forced you to, address some things that you didn't necessarily, want to address. So can we just dive a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, so writing has always been cathartic for me. It is a release. It is a way that I can not feel the need to be performative and show up in ways that people expect me to show up. I can just like let it all out on the page. And in writing and journaling, just like a stream of consciousness journaling, right? Just like letting everything come out, whether it made sense or not. I found out that, there is some healing that needs to be done.
Mhm.
And it was 2019. I think we were entering into the pandemic, I think. And I was journaling, just random journaling. And as I was journaling, I began to reflect on an experience that I had with my mom when I was younger. And I realized that I had not processed it. I've never outwardly expressed any of these thoughts until now. And I kept writing and I kept writing and I kept writing. And my hand began to cramp, and I just kept writing. And I said, there's something here. Like, there's something here. I need to. And by that time, I was not in therapy myself. And I said to myself, something needs to happen. Something different needs to happen. Something more outside of this journaling process that I'm undergoing. And as I began to write, I said, I'm going to write a memoir. And it just kind of transformed into a memoir of my journey with my own mother and my journey as an adolescent entering into motherhood. But writing has essentially it has saved me because it made me realize that through writing and streams of consciousness, I don't have to be performative and I don't have to show up in ways that are not authentic and aligned with who I really am. And I give myself permission to do that through my writing. And I hope to inspire, if I can just inspire one young lady or Black woman, and a woman in general, but specifically Black women, because we're so marginalized and we're so underrepresented. Like you said, if I can just do that for a fraction of the people that I come into contact with, it would make a world of difference.
Yeah, and it sounds like you already are. Like, I want to just go back to something else I heard you say. You recognize that there was something there, as you were writing. So it sounds like you essentially have become, I guess, like the generational curse breaker in your family, and the work that you've done to heal yourself. Like you said, it's also enabled you to heal your relationship with your own mother.
Hmm. Yeah, so my mom, I hope she doesn't kill me with this. She's really public with this. But she doesn't have the best relationship with her own mother, and she acknowledges that in part has something to do with her relationship with me. And I have two younger sisters by my with my mother as well. And she acknowledges the breakdown in the relationship with her mother and how that contributed to how she parented. And it was only until I decided to ask her to sit down and have a conversation with me, and I was like very, I was scared because I didn't know what her response would be. I didn't know if she would take accountability or ownership of anything that happened to me or to us when I was a child. But she just sat there and she listened, and
Mm.
that was so profound for me because usually, I'm not gonna say usually, but the clients that I deal with, a lot of their mothers, when they have maternal wounds, the mothers they don't know how to take accountability, or they don't want to take accountability, and then that leaves the adult child kind of trying to figure out the answers on their own and trying to figure out some level of closure. But my mom made it so easy for me. It wasn't easy, but she made it easier for me to do that because she just sat there and she listened to me. She didn't try to make any excuses. And it was at that moment that I said, I want to better my relationship with her, because she deserves that, because she didn't acquire the things that she needed from her mother. But I owe her this because she just gave me this beautiful gift that some people don't get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And side note, I'm also an avid journaler. I have my journal here. So like you, like first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, my whatever's on my mind, I just start writing. And like
Mhm.
at the end of the week, whether it's like Saturday or Sunday, I'll do like a weekly reflection and just kind of reflect on my week and, document my wins. And I don't, classify small wins or big wins. Like anything is a win. So I'm always constantly journaling. So that's
Yeah.
one thing we also share in common.
I love that. I love that. Yes.
Um,
I also have a so every year, like at the end of the year, so my son is amazing. He's amazing. Every year he gets me a journal for Christmas, a new journal, so that I have the challenges to fill up a journal for the calendar year. So
mhm.
I'm working on my 2025 journal. But yeah, everybody knows that I'm a writer. That's what I'm going to do if nothing else. So
Yeah, I go through several within a year. Like I think I just started this one back in January and it's almost already full.
nice, love that.
So I want to shift gears. I heard you talk about your book. So I know you're an author and your book is called Breed Life, Breed Love, and it's all about breaking free from societal norms surrounding motherhood, family, and love. What are some of the harmful narratives we've been conditioned to believe about these roles?
How much time do you have?
I know, I know.
Right. Well, I think I can start with some of the narratives that I lived personally, and that I've seen in some of my clients. Like we can relate to those some of those things. But I would say the first thing that comes to mind is what happens in this house stays in this house,
Yes,
right? And I think
yes.
we can all relate to that, and that is a hindering notion toward all things health, right? Like that is hindering toward your mental and emotional stability, probably maybe your physical, maybe your sexual, maybe your educational, right? We have to, and I think we're doing an okay job as to getting out of that narrative, but I think we can there's still more work to be done. But just speaking up for ourselves and advocating for ourselves, no matter how old you are, right? Obviously age appropriately. But one thing I teach my son, he's like I said, he's 15, he's in his first year of high school, is to advocate for yourself, right? My son he's a brilliant writer. He's a 4 point plus student, and when he submitted his first essay as a high school student, the teacher questioned him and asked him if he used Chat GBT. And I know for a fact he did not, because he's a great writer, and he never responded to the teacher. And although he got an A, I said you need to respond to her and you need to advocate for yourself and let her know that thank you. I guess that's a kind of a backhanded compliment. Um,
Mhm.
but no, I did not use ChatGPT. This is coming from my own self, and I'm capable of doing this plus much more. So, one, advocating for yourself, right, and making sure that you are taking up space. That is
Mm.
a narrative that a lot of black women aren't. They're not used to. So then we show up differently in different spaces because we feel like we have to do more to get
Yep.
basic level
Yep.
recognition, right?
Yep.
So taking up space and being comfortable in your capabilities and your sense of efficacy. And that goes back to this whole conversation of like DEI, right? DEI is not simply for Black people, right? It is to make sure that we are included, right? But then on another surface, on another layer, is that we are qualified and sometimes overqualified. We are highly qualified, overly qualified, right?
We
So
are we're the Black women are the most educated demographic in the country, so we're overqualified for the under-level positions that we are given in corporate America.
yeah, but we don't see ourselves in those spaces.
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, we see ourselves as having to work harder, right? When
Mhm.
um inherently we just have it. We just have that thing that other people try to acquire, and it's very unfortunate that if we have not arrived in a space of healing and self-awareness, we won't be able to recognize in ourselves that we are okay, we are entitled to take up space. So I would
Mhm.
say taking up space, setting boundaries, and then
Mhm.
I think lastly I mean, amongst other things, but lastly, um, the mother daughter relationship, right? And it can be so taboo. It can be so it can pull at your heartstrings because there is typically historically a history of like competition or just not getting along, or what do they say, you starting to smell yourself, right? Like things like
Mm.
that, right? Like coming up
Ooh.
when a child is like trying to assert their boundary, or trying to reveal their identities to themselves and to the rest of the world, right? It can be very difficult for them to be in that space authentically if their mother is not a supporting source for them.
Mm.
So I think that those are my top three right now that come off.
Okay, so I heard you say advocate for yourself, take up space, and set boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Those are important.
Okay. So tell us the meaning about the name of your company, Three Rose Therapy. How did you come to that name?
So I started my business during the pandemic, and I have never been without business because mental health is big, and I'm grateful that I've always been full, especially during the pandemic. That was a ballsy move on my end, so I'm grateful that it did work out. But I was thinking of names. The first name that I came up with was Seven Chakras,
Mm.
but then I thought that not too many people know about the spiritual realm in that regard, and like Reiki, like you said, and balancing your chakras. So it's the chakras are indicated in my logo, but I wanted a more, I guess, mainstream name. So I went with Three Rows. Three is my favorite number, and it represents so many things. um, and then the three roads, so mind, body, and spirit. You go down mind, body, and spirit, and they align at some point. They travel down your life's path parallel, and they all have to be doing something. They all have to have a meaning. They all have to be healthy and viewed and catered to in order to form this holistic person. So that is the details behind my name.
Okay, okay. And so you started your business during the pandemic. And I think I also read that you used to be a government employee before you pivoted into entrepreneurship. Tell me more about that.
So I used to, so I live in Maryland, and by education, I'm a clinical social worker. And my first job out of graduate school, University of Maryland, was the Department of Social Services, Child Protective Services. And when people hear Child Protective Services, they think about baby snatchers, right? Like we come in and we take the babies and we put them into foster care. That I did that. I took kids out of their home and placed them into foster care, but more often than not, we provided services to families to prevent them from the children from being in foster care, right? We were more of a proactive entity, unless it was like dire straits that there were, little to no hope in the capacity. But I was there for 7.5 years. I started off as a case manager, then I moved myself up to a social worker, and then I became a supervisor of the Child Protective Services unit in Prince George's County. Um, and there, I just learned so many things as far as I haven't, and I'm a compassionate person, but I just looked at people's circumstances differently in that capacity, because I was able to understand that although this is my experience, um, other people's experiences, it doesn't mean that they're wrong, or they're not capable of doing right or making appropriate decisions for their children. It's about access to resources that they may or may not have, that sometimes put them in positions where they have to do things that are like life and death, or whether I eat tonight or I don't eat tonight, whether I feed myself or I feed my child. So it just gave me a better perspective on the lack of resources that are allotted to people who look like me, and people who come from situations that I could have very well been in if I didn't make. I could have been one decision away from
Yeah,
where they are, right?
we all are.
Yeah. Yeah, so that experience kind of helped mold me in understanding the higher level of compassion that everybody needs to have, just the world in general. But it came to a point where I was there almost 8 years. It came to a point where I began to feel overworked and underpaid, and that my presence wasn't making the difference that I wanted it to make. So I decided to quit my government job and go out during a pandemic and start a private practice, so that I could see the clients that I wanted to see, so that I could implement the modalities that I wanted to implement, and say the things that I wanted to say, obviously within ethical and legal realms, but just do things the way I wanted to do, so that when I came to work, it didn't feel like work. It felt like me showing up for myself. And that's what um, some of the clients that I have, and I handpick my clients, right? Just because you call for a consultation does not necessarily mean we're a great fit. I want this to
Mhm.
be a lucrative experience for you, because if you're not paying me directly, you're paying your insurance company, and your insurance company is paying me. So somebody's paying me, and this is your
Mhm.
experience. So I want it to be the most productive experience that you have for yourself. So if I feel like it's not a good fit, I'll like refer out. I have other clinicians in my practice. I'll refer to them. If they're not a good fit for those clinicians, then I'll refer out to another practice. But I just wanted to show up authentically, like I have on a hoodie right now. Like I show up
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
a hoodie or
Right.
a baseball cap, and my clients, we just have regular conversations, and they don't even know that what I'm doing is clinical in the background. And I love that. I just love that.
Mhm. One of the things that stood out as you were sharing that story, it sounds like you were definitely lacking fulfillment and that satisfaction, in your previous life, and I can definitely relate to that. And I know within our community, I feel like when we start sharing that with our friends and family, it's like we aren't necessarily allowed to not be
Mhm.
unhappy at our jobs, or we shouldn't, complain, because you talked about, you kind of you moved away from your good government job, and we've always been told go to school, get the degree, get that good job with benefits, and it's kind of like, suck it up and stick it out. So how did your friends and family react when you made this pivot into entrepreneurship during the pandemic?
Surprisingly, I received great feedback. I think it's because my family and friends know that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to go hard in doing it.
Hmm.
So they were all supportive, and I got nothing but good feedback, and people referring clients to me in the early stages. That was amazing.
Hmm.
But when I left my government job, the feedback there was kind of iffy. Um,
Okay.
in that space, everybody didn't look like me. As a matter of fact, I was a minority there. And although my supervisor, she was great. She's a white woman. She was amazing. Um, I just felt like the microaggressions, not specifically from
Mm,
her,
mhm.
but just in general, when saying this is what I plan to do, I'm going to set out and go out on my own in private practice. The microaggressions,
Yeah.
you sure about that? Or, well, where are the clients going to come from? And just like little slick disses. But that didn't discourage me because my family and friends, they definitely had my back. And I've seen other Black women around my age at the time who were successful in those spaces. So I had no doubt that I could not do it because when I put my mind to something, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. I can relate to that. And I feel like oftentimes when we have those naysayers, it's often them projecting their fears and insecurities onto us.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why that just speaks to the importance of surrounding yourself around people who are like-minded, who are just as ambitious as you,
Yes,
people who pour into you as much as you pour into them. That is very important. And if they are not doing those things, then they probably shouldn't be in your circle.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I know I want to switch gears again. So I know many mothers pour so much into themselves, into raising their children. And when a child leaves home for the first time, whether it's for college, the military, or just moving out to be on their own, it can bring up a range of emotions. So, what advice do you have for mothers navigating this transition, especially those who are struggling with feelings of loss, identity shifts, and anxiety?
Did you read my latest blog?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so my latest blog, or one of my latest blogs is this, right? And I'm going through that now, and it's crazy because my son, although he's 15, I presume he will be going to college. I presume he's going to get a scholarship to college. Um, I am grieving him because there has been obviously so many transitions from year to year as far as like his level of independence and how much he needs me and how much he doesn't need me and what that looks like and like the changes that come with that. Um, when he entered into high school at the beginning of this school year, we always do like a small celebration at the first day of school. I don't care how old you are. We're gonna do a small celebration, right? And we're gonna take pictures. So we did it this year and he got on the bus and I just started boohoo crying. And I called my best friend and I said, I can't believe he's in high school. Like I can't believe this. I remember when he was in preschool and us dropping him off and him crying because he didn't want me or his dad to leave. And now I'm crying because he's leaving. And I'm like, I only have 3 more times of this. Like in high school, right? So I have
Yeah.
freshman year up until senior year, and I just started to think about what life will begin to look like once he's off in college. He wants to go to college in California. I might be moving to California, honestly. But he wants to go to college in California, and just his level of independence and him not needing me, it forces me to uh, continue to push the envelope and finding my identity outside of being a mom. And that's why I encourage a lot of my clients, like, you are multifaceted. Like, your identity is not, you are not a worker. You are not a mom. You are not a wife. You're not a girlfriend. You are all of these things. And what else? Right. So we have conversations as that relate to your hobbies. What makes you feel fulfilled? What makes you feel happy outside of serving other people? Because just as women, we serve people. That is just in our nature. And we sometimes forget to serve ourselves. Right.
Mhm.
And that can be lost really fast when you become a parent, especially if you're a parent of multiple children. Right. So I just realize the importance of having conversations with myself and journaling about those things and then enacting those things and putting them into making them my reality and finding hobbies and doing things without my son and realizing that he has his own friend group and he's not going to want
Mhm.
me there dropping him off. He's going to want to maybe take a Uber or ride with a friend or something like that. That has been something that's hard for me, that has been a little hard for me. But as I realize and become aware of those things and those feelings associated with it, it kind of desensitized me a little bit. But what I will say to other women and other mothers who are experiencing or who have experienced similar emotional roller coasters is just making sure that you are reflecting on your identity, whether it's before your identity before becoming a parent,
Mm-hmm.
because there are some remnants of that still present, right? You are definitely not the same person you were before becoming a mother, but there are definitely some remnants of that. So bringing that into the future, and figuring out what the version of that is, like what does that look like now in this stage of life? What is your identity, and understanding that it is a multifaceted thing.
Mm-hmm.
um
Yeah.
a lot of the assignments that I have my clients do when they struggle with like trying like transitions in their roles of life, they write the word identity at the top of their page, and then stream of consciousness after that, whether it's like their definition of identity, what they want their identity to be, what they acknowledge their identity as right now, right? And we kind of process and talk about, is that aligned with who you really are and who you really want to be to yourself and to the rest of the world? So, one, going to therapy, using mindfulness tactics such as journaling and meditation and things like that, and just talking, and also talking to your mom friends, right? Finding a circle, a tribe of moms who are going through similar things so that you can process together. Those
Okay.
are the things I would say off the top.
Okay. And I
Yeah.
know you also have a guided journal called Maternal Musings. Tell us more about that.
So that is really a compilation of the entries that I have done for myself and entering into my motherhood journey and then beyond, right? Like as I still go down this path. But it's simply, I think it's like maybe 200 journal prompts that women can use before they even become a mother, right? Because it reflects on their journeys with their own mother and their ties to their ancestors and their ties to um, their mothers and mother figures, and even their father figures and fathers, their ties to their siblings. So it focuses on all of those familial ties, and then it moves into, what are your expectations of yourself when becoming a mother, as you become a mom, now that you have become a mom? What are your expectations? Are they realistic? Are they unrealistic? Are you being too hard on yourself? What do you want to do for yourself outside of anybody else, children included? Who do you want to be to yourself and to these people? And then it focuses on, if you want to have more children and what that could look like, and still making time for yourself even though you have to tend to multiple children. It's just kind of like a linear journey of what becoming a mother can be for you, and you really defining this these experiences for yourself, and not allowing society to say, hey, this is what you need to conform to, this is what is normal, right? We don't use that term in my
Mm-hmm.
therapy sessions, because normal is very subjective, and what your normal, Angela, is not my normal.
Right.
So we try to figure out how we can define that sense of normalcy for them, and without comparing your experiences to other people's experiences. So the guided journal, is just bringing awareness to things that you may not have even thought needed to be, you need to be aware of. So yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. I love that. I love how you personalize it. And it's like, I like the fact that what's normal for me or what's normal for you is not the same for everyone
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
because we can't fit in a box. We're not a monolith.
And they always say, what is this saying? Comparison is the thief of joy, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
journey is not my journey, and we can be seemingly looking like we're doing some of the same things, but we don't know the backstory. We don't know what it took to get there. We don't know what the sacrifices were, and we don't know, our emotional and mental well-being
Yeah.
as a result to these things. So, just the guided journal was just a ploy for me to help young mothers, or mothers in general, understand that their journey is their own, and that we can't get this experience back. We can't get a lot of these experiences back. So it's very important that you bask in these experiences and learn from them, so that you can be the best version of you possible.
Absolutely. Well, I want to move into our lightning round, and this is where I ask you some rapid fire questions. So, whatever comes to mind, there's no right or wrong answer. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. What's one thing you try to do every day?
Tell my son I love him and give him a kiss every
Oh.
day.
Oh. When do you feel most alive?
When I'm doing nothing, I am always on go doing something. But when I'm doing nothing, mindless activity, I feel most alive.
What's a mindless activity for you?
I love junk reality TV. Like
Me too.
600 Pound Life. I love it all the reality shows. Like I don't know,
Okay.
that's not my problem. So yeah.
Right. That's one of my guilty pleasures
Yes,
too.
yes.
Can you share a professional experience that had a big impact on who you are today?
That's a really good one. I would say the first day I walked into Child Protective Services, it was in Charles County, Maryland, and I was 24. I think I was 24 years old, and I was the only Black woman in Child Protective Services out of 7 investigators, and I was intimidated. I had really long locks. And I have my style of clothing it can be very it can be androgynous. It can be like in your face, and me just walking into that white space, it felt intimidating. But as the months started to go by, and I started to do the work, and I started receiving affirmation and validation that I am supposed to be there and I'm fully capable of being there. It just made me walk differently and made me see myself differently and just begin this journey of like I'm supposed to be here and take up space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your go-to mantra when you're facing a challenge?
I hope I can say this, but excuse my language. Fuck it. My dad tells me, he says it's not that serious. He always says it's not that serious. Fuck it. That is my go-to mantra because I struggle with anxiety just growing up, and I still struggle with anxiety. Sometimes it has to be I have to be made aware of and reminded that it's not that serious, and it's whatever's going to happen, it's going to happen. So yeah.
When you need a quick energy boost, what's your go-to?
Quick energy boost. I love I love to work out. But my thing is like cardio. I have a treadmill in my office now, and I'll do like 30 to 35 minutes of an incline on the treadmill, and I have a TV right
Mhm.
here, and I watch TV, junk
Nice.
TV, and that'll be my boost, kind of to break up the monotony of the day.
Nice. Nice. What's the boldest risk you've ever taken?
Quitting my good government job to start a private practice in a pandemic.
But it's worked for you.
Yeah, it has worked. Yes.
Okay. Last rapid fire question. How do you personally define success?
Ooh, that's a really good one. I personally define success. Um, I use journaling to help me with that, and I write down what I feel grateful for, and I use journaling to outline what makes me feel fulfilled and happy. And then I take that and I say, is this how I want to live my life? Like the things that have happened to me over the past week or the past month, is this how I want to live my life? Is this aligned with my life's purpose and my goals? And if the answer is yes, then I'm successful. I'm happy. But if it's not, then there obviously has to be some tweaking, right? But I'm really not. I'm really never far off from it because I do things align with what I want to do, honestly. But I just use reflection and awareness to determine if that is something that I'm aiming towards. I'm going towards the success.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap up, we may have already touched on this in some of the rapid fire questions, but I do like to ask all my guests one particular question. So, what do you like to do when you aren't fearlessly leading?
I like to. I set a date every month um, to hang out with my son every month. Like he knows, movies are our thing, so we go to the movie theater
Nice.
every month. And if we're not going to the movies, we go eat at a restaurant or something. But definitely spending time with my son as long as he will allow me to before he goes out into this world and does things with his friends and his girlfriend or whatever. And then I love to shop. I love to shop and just be outside, like in the malls and just hanging out and people watch. So those are
Nice.
the main two things. Yeah.
Nice. I
Yeah.
love that.
Thank you.
Well, Chelsea, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. How can our listeners stay connected with you?
I am on Instagram, and Instagram is the number three Rhodes, ROADS therapy. And then TikTok at three.roads.therapy. And then I'm also on Facebook, three Rose Therapy on Facebook. Yeah.
Okay, I'll make
I'm
sure I include that information in the show notes so the listeners can stay connected with you.
Thank you so much. And then also my website, www.threerosetherapy.com. Also, you can send inquiries there.
Okay, well, thank you again, Chelsea. And to our listeners, I hope you found today's episode as insightful, as inspiring as I did. Thank you for tuning in today. Until next time, take care. Hey, fearless leaders. We've been on this journey for over a year, and I want to take a moment to thank you for your support. If you love what you're hearing on the Flow podcast, please consider supporting us on Buy Me a Coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Angela V. Harris. Every little bit helps us keep these conversations going. Thank you for being a part of the Flow family. Thank you for listening to the Flow podcast. As we wrap up today's episode, always remember your unique path, your voice, and your leadership matter. If you loved what you heard, subscribe now to stay updated on our latest episodes. Take a moment to leave a review and share this episode with someone who can benefit from these conversations. You can stay connected with me on Instagram at the Flow Podcast with Angela, or visit me on the web at angelavharris.com. Until next time, take care, stay inspired, and keep fearlessly leading in your own way.